It's human nature to look for the most efficient way to go about a problem when presented with multiple options. And the interesting thing about it is that depending on who you ask, the answer could differentiate. An example in the context of GTFO is some would prefer to deal with birthers and sneak their way through enemy filled darkness. And meanwhile, others would prefer to deal with charger variants and utilize fog repellers to cautiously make their way through a sea of infectious fog. So, my question for you, dear prisoners, is which of these two do you prefer? Hello everyone, Professor Scalar here, and welcome to the alternate R6D2 level guide. As always, we're starting off with your loadout, and for this one, I recommend you bring with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and any 2 sentries of your choice. Reason for the bio tracker is the same as always, being able to gather information with it, tagging enemies and scouts of course. There will be some zones in this level either covered in fog or darkness, so sight will be hindered a bit, making the bio tracker even more valuable. As for the mine deployer, there are multiple blood doors and alarm doors in this level, and of course, mines are a beautiful way to handle basically every single one of them. Shut some doors, place a mine on them, maybe even hit with a C4 grenade if you happen to come across one, and watch all those enemies blow into smithereens. And last but not least, the 2 sentries. These are to assist us with some of the alarm doors by giving us some extra firepower. As for the type of sentries you want to bring with you, it's completely up to you and your teammates. I will typically default a little bit more towards burst sentries or sniper sentries for this level, since a lot of the enemies you have to deal with are going to be chargers. But if you want to take things like auto sentries or even shotgun sentries, you can get away with it. Just make sure you're positioning it properly so those aren't shooting at enemies from too far away and missing most of their shots. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to extract data keys from terminals, and you'll need a total of 9 of them in order to make it out of this mission. There's going to be a total of 12 of them throughout this level, and you can find data keys on literally every single terminal throughout the entirety of the main sector. Any terminal you come across will have a command you can put into it to extract a data key from it. However, not every single zone along the main route will have terminals in them. But starting off, you and your teammates will be inside zone 192. In here, a few enemies to deal with, specifically chargers. There will also be some resources to collect, and there are going to be 3 different security doors as well as a generator, which will unlock the northern one to zone 196. And towards the very beginning of the zone, you will be able to find a terminal with your very first key. So get that key, clear out the enemies, grab resources, keep an eye out for fog repellers too if you happen to come across them. And then, since we can't go to the northern security door, we're going to go instead to the west to the door to zone 193. This door is just going to be a full team scan, and once you open it up, everything inside that zone is going to automatically wake up. Specifically, a decent amount of baby strikers as well as a birther. So what I like to do is fall back away from the door. There's a ladder right next to you, which is beautiful to use. Just climb up it and let the babies come up to you. And of course, just keep away from the security door so the birther doesn't get line of sight of you and spawn in more babies. And then once all the babies are dead, you can either rush the birther if she is close, or fall back a little bit to make her come towards you. Then just rush her down and try to kill her before she spawns in too many babies. At this point, you should know how to deal with these things, so don't really need to explain much more. Once all the enemies are dead though, you can head into zone 193. In here, there will be some resources to collect, but there is not a terminal, but there are security doors to the south and to the west. And we're going to be heading to the southern one first because the other security door is currently locked. So we're going to the security door to zone 205. This is going to be a blood door, and this blood door will spawn in a lot of baby strikers. So I recommend place 1, maybe even 2 mines on the blood door facing different directions, and then open it up, fall back a little bit. If you also want to, you could place down your sentries and just have those help you out a little bit, since there will be a lot of enemies that survive the mine's explosions. And once everything is dead, you can head into there. In that zone, it's not very big, but you'll be able to find more resources, a terminal with your second key, as well as a power cell and a colored key card. That power cell you can take back out to the main hub room and plug it into the generator, which is actually not too far away from the security door itself. And then that colored key card, you can use that and go to the western side of the area where you'll find a security door to zone 206. This door is also going to be a blood door, but you have to plug that key card into it first. So once you've done that, place a mine on the door and you're good to go. Open it up, it'll spawn in a few more enemies as well as a few giants and hybrids. Deal with every single one of the enemies just like you typically would, and once they're all dead, you can head into there. In this zone, a few more boxes of lockers you could check out, as well as a terminal with your third encryption key. So once you got to that and all the resources from the entirety of this sector, you're done with this route. You could go back out to the main hub room and then go to the northern end to the security door to zone 196, which is now unlocked because we placed a power cell into that generator. This security door though is going to have a traveling alarm tied to it, which is only going to be spawning in charger type enemies. And as you can see with this map overlay, they're going to be spawning from the west of you since we open up the western route first. So what I recommend you do, since there are no doors you could shut or mine, is instead place your sentries near the staircase on the western side of the area, because when you do the traveling alarm, you will be heading over in that general direction. So the first few enemies are going to take the northwestern ladder, but then every other charger afterwards will take that other ladder a little bit further to the east. So if you have your sentries near it, it will deal with them quite nicely. Once everything's set up though, activate the alarm, follow the scan. Once it finishes, just deal with any of the chargers who are still left alive. And once everything is dead, pack up your sentries, open the security door, and head into there. As for zone 196 itself, not a whole lot to take note of in here. There will be some resources, there'll be more chargers to deal with, but there is not going to be a terminal inside the zone, so you're going to have to look around quite a bit to find all those resources. There's also a security door at the far northern end of the zone which does have a checkpoint tied to it, but this checkpoint is the only one you get in the mission, so I would recommend don't utilize it quite yet, because halfway through the zone on the western end of it, you'll find a security door to zone 198. This security door though is going to have an error alarm tied to it. This error alarm will spawn in 3 chargers roughly every 90 seconds, so a minute and a half. Although I've noticed sometimes in the wave, instead of getting 3 regular chargers, you'll get 1 giant charger and 1 regular charger, so be cautious of that. The nice thing about this error alarm though is it can be deactivated by using a terminal found inside zone 200, which is at the end of this route. So once you take care of everything in 196 and you're good to go, do the full team scan tied to that security door and then run on in. Maybe have one person who stays behind just to deal with those 3 chargers while the other 3 people push ahead, because zone 198 itself will have a few sleeping chargers throughout it. There'll also be some resources to collect, and in the back end of the zone there will be a terminal with your 4th key on it, but you do not need to collect this quite yet. Instead, you're just going to want to grab the resources in here, and in the second room go to the northern end where you'll find a security door to zone 199. This door is going to have a class 5 cluster alarm tied to it though, which is only going to be spawning in charger type enemies. As you can see with this map overlay, only 1 possible spawn location for these chargers, 1 door between you and them, so recommend shut that door, mine it. If you happen to come across a seafoam grenade at this point, go on ahead and seafoam it, maybe even hit with multiple throughout the alarm if you found more than just 1, and then your sentries could just be inside the room with you facing towards the door, so it'll shoot at enemies after the door is broken down. Once everything is set up though, you can activate the alarm, work on these scans. Once everything is finished, deal with any of the chargers who are still left alive, pack up your sentries, and then go into zone 199 itself. And in here, you're going to be able to find more enemies, more resources, as well as another terminal, which is going to have your 5th key on it. And at the back end of the zone, towards the western end, I believe, you'll find the security door to zone 200. This security door is just going to be a blood door, which will spawn in a few regular chargers. However, you want to be a little bit careful because zone 200 itself, the only type of enemies sleeping in here are going to be giant chargers, as well as 1 charger scout patrolling about. And more often than not, the charger scout will be in the second room, but it might be in the first, in which case more than likely it will wake up because of the blood door opening. So be aware, a scout's going to scream and you'll have a wave of enemies coming from behind you. But just like you typically would, place a mine or 2 on that blood door, open it up, fall back a little bit. If anything survives the mine explosions, you just simply shoot and deal with them. And once all the giant chargers from the first room are dead, you could just split up a little bit, have some people who stay behind to deal with the error alarm wave, while some people go on ahead into the zone. In the second room at the back end of it, down below in the infectious fog, you will be able to find the terminal, which you can use to deactivate this error, as well as get your 6th encryption key from. At this point, you can now backtrack to all 3 of these zones, 198, 199, and 200, and collect all the resources you left behind and just top yourselves off, and of course, get those encryption keys you might have missed. With all of that though, you can then go back up to the northern end of the level where you'll find that security door to zone 197, which will have the checkpoint scan tied to it. Once you finish the scan, door will automatically open up, and inside zone 197, there will be a terminal with your 7th key on it. You'll be able to find 2 charger scouts, as well as a few other chargers here and there, your very first bulkhead key, as well as the bulkhead door control and the doors to your main and secondary sectors, as well as another normal security door. Clear your way through the zone, deal with every single one of the enemies, get that bulkhead key. I don't believe there are any resources in the zone, but I might be wrong on that detail. And once you got the key and clear all the rooms, you can plug that into the door control. And if you're doing a main objective only run, then you can just skip ahead to the time that you see on screen, because there we'll talk about the rest of the mission. Everybody else though, we're going to go and deal with the secondary objective first, because dealing with it is actually going to make the rest of the main objective a little bit easier. So everybody else, go over to the bulkhead door to zone 363 on the northern end of it. Just an open bulkhead door, no scan or anything tied to it. And we're going to go into there and start on our secondary objective. Now, upon entering into the zone, you'll see your secondary objective is to find a specific terminal and create an uplink with it. And that terminal will be inside zone 363 with you. However, this terminal is a corrupted uplink, which means you have two people on two separate terminals, one person saying what the password is, the other person saying what the actual word itself is, and just what you typically deal with when it comes to corrupted uplinks. As for the rest of the room, the bomb portion of it will be covered in infectious fog. There's going to be, I believe, 1 or 2 regular chargers sleeping and 1 charger scout patrolling about, so deal with them as you see fit. And then once you've taken care of the enemies in here, you can then go over to the western side of the zone. Because when it comes to the corrupted uplink, one of those terminals is going to be password locked, and that password is going to be found in the eastern zone. However, there is a terminal in the western zone we can use to purify all the infectious fog in the level, and we want to go do that first. So head over to the west. This security door is going to be a blood door, the one to zone 364. And this blood door is going to spawn in a few chargers as well as a lot of giant strikers. So go on ahead, place 2, maybe even 3 mines on the door, depending on how your torty fill is looking. Once you've dealt with all these enemies though, you can then head into zone 364 itself, and here more resources to collect. At the back end of it, you'll find a terminal, which once you put the command into it, all the fog and the level will be purified. And this is actually going to make the next step of the level easier. Because once you take care of all this stuff in here, you want to go back onto the main hub room, go to the eastern side to the security door 366, and this door is going to have a class 4 mixed alarm tied to it. And you might be wondering, why did we just open up a new spawn location? Isn't that going to make this alarm harder? But that's actually not the case, because this alarm does not spawn in regular strikers or shooters or even chargers. It spawns in flyers, and they always spawn in the room way up above you. So when it comes to dealing with this alarm, if you have a burst sentry or sniper sentry, feel free to place it somewhere in the room, sort of just as high as you can get it, so there's a chance it will shoot at some of the flyers. But this alarm is mostly going to be up to you and your teammates and you actually shooting at them. So what I like to do is heal everybody up to maybe around 40 or 60% depending on my teammates. And if you have good weapons to deal with flyers, then you could try to focus on dealing with them. But this scan is going to go all throughout the room. So if I don't have a great weapon to deal with the flyers, I will just run around, focus on the scans. And an important thing is to just keep on moving. Even if you're standing in a scan, don't stand completely still. Just strafe a little bit so when those flyers shoot at you, there's a chance you'll dodge a projectile and you won't take quite as much damage. And just get these scans done as quickly as you can, since the wires do spawn in pretty quickly. Once you finish all the scans though, no more of them will spawn in, so you just shoot and kill the rest who are still alive, and then you could go into zone 366 itself. In there, if I recall correctly, no sleeping enemies whatsoever, but there will be a fair amount of resources. And in the second room at the far southern east corner of it, you will be able to find a terminal which is going to have the password to unlock the uplink from earlier. So get the resources in here, get that code, then you can go out, go back to the main hub room, unlock the terminal which is currently locked, and at this point we are almost ready to deal with the uplink itself. Reason why I say almost is because, of course, it's going to be an uplink terminal, so we're going to want to make sure we set up some defenses. As you can see with this map overlay, this uplink will be spawning in charger type enemies, and they could spawn from the west of you, the east of you, or even down south. So every single one of the doors I've highlighted, go on ahead, shut and mine them. And then when it comes to your sentries, there's a few different ways you can do it. I will typically have one sentry facing towards the eastern open security door to deal with enemies from there. And then the other sentry I will have down south facing towards that area, because more often than not, I find enemies love to spawn from the south and the east during this uplink, but not so much towards the west. And that's really all there is to setting it up. So get everything positioned how you need to, heal people up a little bit, and once you're good to go, activate the uplink. There's going to be a total of 5 different codes you're going to have to put in, and if you're not actively typing something on a terminal, then go on ahead, hop off it, and shoot those enemies to help your teammates. And once you put in all 5 codes, no more enemies are going to be spawning in. However, you want to be a little bit careful because that northern security door next to the terminal, the one to zone 365, that will automatically open up after you finish the uplink. And in that area, there will always be a sleeping tank who will automatically wake up no matter what after that door fully opens. So once you put in the 5th and final code, I recommend the 2 people on the northern end fall back away from that door and rejoin the people in the southeastern corner and just quickly deal with the rest of the chargers. Then once everything is dead, you could focus on that tank and get rid of him somewhere in this room. Once he is dead, you can then go into the northern area, collect the resources in there, as well as the second bulkhead key. And with that, your secondary objective is completed. So go back out into the main sector, go to the door control, plug your key into the door control, and do the scan for the main objective. And we could continue on with the rest of it. Alright, so continue on with the rest of the main objective. We just finished the main bulkhead scan, which is unlock the security door to zone 204, which is found at the western end of the zone. So we're going to head over there because that security door is just going to have a full team scan tied to it. And in the room is pitch black darkness, but there will be a single charger scout patrolling about, which we want to get rid of him right here and now. And once he's dead, you can check the box and lockers for consumables. I don't believe there's any resources in here though, and we could just leave the zone. This is actually where our extraction scan is going to appear later, so we're just simply getting this opened ahead of time and get rid of the charger scout just to make things a little bit easier in case something does go wrong. But at this point, we should have 7 out of 9 of the keys that we need, and there's 2 different routes we could take to get the remainder of them. Which what I like to do, because we just purified all the infectious fog in the level, or at least those of us who did the secondary objective just did, is actually go all the way back to the beginning and go to the eastern end of the very first zone, where we'll find that security door to zone 194. This door is just going to have a full team scan tied to it, and inside of that zone, there's going to be, I believe, nothing but sleeping giant chargers, as well as spitters, and this zone is quite foggy, and even though you will have fog repellers and there is a fog turbine in here, if this fog is not purified, you're going to be throwing a lot of fog repellers, and more likely than not, you're going to gain quite a bit of infection because of this area, which is why I like to save this for after secondary, so we really don't have to worry about whatsoever, because in its purified state, the fog isn't really that much of an issue whatsoever. It's quite easy to see through. So we're going to go throughout here, deal with every single one of the chargers and get rid of them one by one, either stealthily or by shooting them, up to you and your teammates. And once you take care of everything in this zone, you could go to the far eastern end of it, where you will find the security door to zone 195. This door is going to have a class 3 alarm tied to it, which will be nothing but full team scans, and it will only spawn in charger type enemies. But as you can see with this map overlay, there's only 2 different spawn locations for these chargers. And what we're going to do is the northern door, we're going to shut that and go on ahead and mine it. And if we happen to have a C-foam grenade, go on ahead and C-foam it as well. And then we're going to have that eastern door shut, but the western one opened to ensure that all of the enemies during this alarm will funnel in through there. Because doing that will make it so they have to go across the catwalk and down the staircases, which will delay them a bit. And if we place both of our sentries somewhere on that catwalk, it is an absolutely beautiful funnel, which will make this alarm so much easier to deal with. And once you finish all the scans, deal with the chargers who are still left alive, pack up your sentries, and then you can very carefully make your way into zone 195. The reason why I say very carefully is because this zone is one big room. In here, you'll be able to find 2 terminals, one with your 8th key and the other one with the 9th and final key that you need for your main objective. However, this zone is guarded by a lot of spitters and 6 charger scouts. There's also some resources and a power cell in here, but that's not quite as important. Now, what I like to do, assuming that these are the last 2 keys I need and I've already opened up my main bulkhead door and extraction is available to me, is I will have 3 people go all the way back up north to that zone and just wait in that room. And then 1 person, you're going to just go in and you're going to try to get both of those terminals without waking up the charger scouts. And if you happen to fail and you do alert them, it's honestly not that big of a deal. Because while they're doing their scream animation and everything, you just very quickly run for the first terminal, put the command into it, wait for it to finish, then run to the other terminal, which around this point is when they will stop screaming and actually start chasing you down. But you kind of just quickly shoot them and kill them, or get on the other terminal if you have enough HP to tank a little bit, put the command into it, get the 9th and final key from it, which will then cause the extraction scan to appear. And your 3 teammates who are just waiting right there can just get onto extraction immediately and get you out of that level, and you don't even have to worry about all the enemies that just got spawned in. But assuming you're able to play it that way, you get your 9th key in and you get to the extraction scan, once you get to 100%, you're done and you've completed the level. However, this guide is not quite over yet because there's actually 3 more zones I have not covered, and that's because these 3 zones are zones I typically will never go into. That's because what's in those 3 zones, in my eyes, is far more terrifying than those giant chargers and 6 charger scouts. But of course, it's a guide, so I have to cover everything. So going back up to the northern end, you'll find a security door to zone 201. This door is just going to have a full team scan to it, and that zone itself is covered in pitch black darkness. There's going to be 2 rooms tied to it. And throughout these 2 rooms, there'll be a fair amount of regular strikers and shooters, 3 charger scouts patrolling about, and 2 sleeping birthers. Now, you do not have to kill everything in the zone. You can actually perfectly sneak your way through the entirety of it, but depending on where the enemies are and where those charger scouts are located at, it can be a bit dangerous. So what I like to do is analyze my surroundings, see where everybody is positioned at, and then try to stealthily kill as much as I possibly can, and then just blast my way through the remainder charger scouts and birthers if it's a safe thing to do. But however you want to play it is up to you, of course. Now, in Zone 201 itself, there won't be any terminals that you can get encryption keys from. But in the first room, you will find a security door to Zone 202, which will have a Class 3 stealth scan tied to it. So finish those scans, and once you do, that security door unlocks, and you can go into 202. In there, it will be a little bit dark, but there will be some lighting here and there. And there's going to be, once again, 2 different rooms. And throughout these 2 rooms will be even more strikers and shooters, 2 more charger scouts patrolling about, and 2 sleeping birthers. And in the second room of the zone, you will find 2 terminals, both of them having encryption keys on them, so you can get 2 of them from this area. So if you want to go down here and you only need 2 left, then you just have to go to Zone 202. However, if you still need 1 more because you've been playing the level quite a bit differently compared to how I've been recommending it, then there is still 1 other zone you can head to, which is found in the second room of Zone 201. In there, you'll find a security door to Zone 203. This door is only going to have a Class 2 stealth scan tied to it, and in there it's just 1 big open room, which will have a single terminal with your 12th key, which is somewhere in the far back end of it. But in the room, again, more chargers that will be sleeping here and there, 2 more sleeping birthers, and 1 charger scout patrolling about. Thankfully though, the enemy density of this room isn't really all that bad, so you pretty easily sneak your way to the back end and get to that terminal. So if you want to go in here, by all means go on ahead. Just of course be careful not to wake everything up. But that's all the zones in the level. That's all 12 terminals you could potentially get your extraction keys from. So as I said earlier, once you get the 9th one, you can then make your way back to Zone 204, get onto the extraction scan. It is a silent one and it gains progress pretty quickly. And once you get it all the way to 100%, you are done and you have completed alternate R6D2. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R6D2 presents you with multiple choices throughout it. If you're someone who doesn't mind dealing with armies of chargers and infectious fog, there's a perfect route for you. But if you're someone who hates the fog and rather deal with the Karen squad and her army of ankle biters, then that too is a valid option for you. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that I was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this mission that you would like to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, I suggest equipping your running cosmetics, as speed is going to be key in the next mission, and hopefully I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.